You can see we're sitting on our patio with a lovely view of the Atlantic behind us. That is, yet again, Hans Lalek Island. We have since learned that it's uninhabited. There's a little beach right there. Occasionally we see boats going out there, even somebody camping one day.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun to watch the world happen out of this view. Anyhow, we've been here a month today.
1 month today.
1 month today, December 2nd. And just doing sort of a little check-in, a little recap, State of the Union, whatever you want to call it. Share some of our thoughts, experiences, differences in the things that we learned and researched beforehand versus real-life experience, that sort of thing.
In preparation for coming to the island, we did watch a lot of other YouTube videos about what it's like to live here from people who are natives, locals, and also people who moved here like us. And definitely a lot of the things that they mentioned ring true, but there are some things that were talked about a lot in those videos that either we just really haven't found them to be super true, or maybe we were really prepared for those things. For instance, we did hear that some of the locals and natives aren't the friendliest people, that you really have to go above and beyond to be friendly to them to get them to really even acknowledge you. And that's not really been a problem for us. Everybody that we've come across has been really nice, and maybe it is because we do go above and beyond to be nice to them too, but we have found that all the locals are very helpful, very friendly.
Yeah, there is a little bit of some cultural norms that coming from the States we're not used to. Some of the courtesies about saying hello, good morning, and waiting for the other person to respond before you sort of launch into what you're going to say. That's sort of a very big gesture of respect here. So we've learned some of those things, and we're applying them as much as we can, but agreed, generally speaking, everybody's been great.
Definitely people here say good morning, good day, and good night. And on the island, good night is not what you say at the end of the evening when you're leaving, but actually when you show up. So it's stateside.
It's a good greeting.
Stateside, like you would say good evening. Here they actually say good night when they first see each other. So that was a little bit of adjustment, but we're definitely trying to do that whenever we come across people.
Another thing that I would say that was a thing that people, well, I'll say two things that people sort of, try to sort of warn us about was one, shopping, that it would be really difficult to find a lot of things. Cleaning products, certain types of foods, all that. And yes, it's not as easy as just dropping into something like a Target and pretty much just having everything available. Sometimes you have to bounce between a few different stores, but the retail here is much more robust than I had the impression.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would say the second thing is, and maybe this is just our personalities, but I feel like a lot of the warnings about the humidity are a bit overblown. I think in certain days, certain times of the year, it will be worse. We will feel that more. And there have been days, especially if we've been kind of, we'll say like in a valley and the wind hasn't been as great, you feel it. But I'm also not constantly sweating 24 hours a day either.
So I think where you choose to live on the island does play a big part into that. We are on the north side, and as you can see behind us, we've got the ocean here, and it's just, we get breeze all day long, and it's definitely winter time right now. It is December 2nd. So we do know that coming into the summer months, June, July, especially August and September, that it's not going to be quite as nice as it is now.
Yeah. And we do feel the humidity, especially in the kitchen, I should say. When we make toast, for example, it goes chewy pretty fast. We were accustomed to leaving salt out for cooking. We just like grab some salt and season stuff. That does not work. It just soaks up moisture right out of the air and becomes a puddle in the little bowl. So it's very noticeable with certain things in the kitchen. Just for my personal comfort level, though, even when I'm in the kitchen, the same place that the salt is getting wet, I'm fine.
Yeah. Speaking of the kitchen and the humidity, that was definitely a big adjustment for us, as Peter was saying. So we did have to buy damp rid, which we were able to find at Ace Hardware and Home Depot. So basically it's, if you haven't heard of it, which we hadn't before we moved here, it's this little bucket that has these crystals in it, and you put it in the pantries, and it soaks up all of the moisture and humidity in the pantries to help keep your food dry and fresh. So we have one in every pantry, and then once all the crystals, I guess, disappear, liquefy, dissolve, then it's time for a new one. So that's a pretty easy fix. We also bought a ton of airtight containers. So when we indulge and get things like cookies or certain kinds of rice, flours, things like that we want really dry, we make sure to put those in airtight containers. So just little easy adjustments, and it's just like being back home.
Yep. Another thing I would say that's different than from what we expected, again, just kind of like pulling together advice and information from several sources, is the bugs.
And we do know that it's rainy season right now, or we're coming out of rainy season.
Yeah, it is the rainy season right now. And
the bugs.
There's a lot of mosquitoes out. In fact, we sprayed up just before getting on camera. Yeah, there you go. That is it is a daily feature of our lives right now. It's putting on bug spray, which sometimes means 1 or 2 or 3 showers a day, usually just kind of rinsing off. But that's something that we have to be really careful of. There's a certain type of no-see-um here that I think is a sand flea, but they leave a particularly nasty bite that blisters up and stuff, and it's really, really uncomfortable. So that's something that we've had to be a lot more on top of than I thought before we left.
Absolutely. Which brings us to kind of the good and bad of living here. A lot of the other YouTubers that we watched talked about, like Peter said, money, groceries, produce especially, shopping, things like that. Just kind of general cost of living. And yes, compared to Texas, the cost of living is definitely higher. Groceries are higher, gas is higher, utilities are higher, all of that. But I would say if you're coming from somewhere like California, New York, maybe Chicago, places like that, it's probably going to be less. It's not nearly as outrageous as we thought. Granted, there are some things that we're just not buying, either just because we don't really need them or they don't make sense here. Like milk, we haven't bought a gallon of milk since we've been here because we're not big milk drinkers, but we did buy half and half for our coffee, and it was like, what, $2, $3?
Yeah, for
a quart.
Yeah.
That's not bad. We do have a whole other video about grocery shopping, so check that out. But definitely liquor is a lot cheaper here, which is nice.
Yeah, and there's no sales tax.
Yep. That
so
helps.
Yeah, it makes things a little cheaper. It also just makes prices of everything really predictable. Yeah. Even at restaurants, right? You see it's like $18 for an entree on the menu. It's going to be $18 on the receipt.
Yeah. So the first couple weeks of living here were a little bit of a struggle. The islands welcomed us very warmly in the worst possible way. And we've heard from a lot of people that kind of happens, that the first month is usually the hardest. But just to give you an idea, here's a couple things that happened our first month and kind of how we dealt with them and what we would recommend. So we are renting our condo, and within the first month, again, we're in the rainy season right now, our roof was leaking. We lost power, which we've heard is super common here, but we lost power 3 times the first week. But then we haven't lost power since then. Yeah. So it kind of is hit and miss. We had 3 times in 1 week and then not like power, no problem for 3 weeks. When the power goes out, the cistern has a electric pump, so your water goes out too. And then the gas is on a propane tank, and there's no meter on that, so you can't tell how much propane you've used. So also the first week, our propane tank ran out, and so we were out of gas. So there was a couple-day period where we had no power, no water, no gas, leaking roof.
Yeah.
some electrical issues, but fortunately our landlord's been really great, and the HOA here in Mahogany Run has been really great, and they sent their maintenance guy immediately, and we got a lot of that resolved. One of the things that we're learning on the island is you got to have a guy for everything. You got to have a car guy, you got to have an electrician, you got to have maintenance guys, you got to have a guy. So something else that we experienced the first couple weeks is some Jeep issues. So as you probably saw, hopefully, in another video, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch the vehicle video. We shipped a Jeep here. Again, we didn't really understand the rainy season, so twice we had the top off the Jeep and a storm popped up out of nowhere. In completely clear sunny skies like this, it just like downpour monsoon rained, and so the Jeep got full of water.
Yeah, during the rainy season, it can be pretty big systems, or it can be little tiny clouds, no bigger than this island, that you'll be in blue skies, and then all of a sudden a little cloud comes along and dumps rain and then moves along, and you might not even notice if you were in the store for 20 minutes. So we have had to be a lot more diligent about, at least now during the rainy season. Maybe it'll get better, but yeah, we've had to be really careful about keeping the top off the Jeep and where we park it.
Yeah. So we're having to get the carpets washed and dried and cleaned. We're having to have the radio replaced because the whole stereo system got shot with all the rain. We also are having some suspension issues and brake issues already. The roads here are really hit and miss. Some of them are great. Some have no problems. They've been recently repaved, and some are full of potholes and really steep hills. We're definitely glad that we brought a Jeep. We see tons of other cars on the island that aren't Jeeps, either other little SUVs or even like just normal sedan cars. Yeah. So you can get around with anything, but we're glad we have a Jeep.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
But yeah, we have a mechanic now.
Yep. We've got a car guy.
We got a car guy.
Speaking of the radio, when we bought the new radio, it's actually being shipped from the States, and it's coming to our P.O. box. We got a P.O. box.
P.O. box.
And for a short time period, that presented a challenge to us with regards to banking. After we got that, I went to start updating our address with all of our credit cards and other banks and some other institutions. And a lot of these self-service websites where you can go in and update your own address don't accept either A, a P.O. box, or B, an address outside of the continental U.S.
Yes.
Fortunately, just a phone call to the customer service, they can bypass all of the sort of checks that the websites make and enter our address. It's been no problem since, so that was a nice thing to learn, something that we did not read about before we got here.
Absolutely. So, as he's kind of saying, generally speaking, the U.S. Postal Service delivers to the islands, but they don't deliver to residential addresses anywhere on the island. So it's not just that our condo is a physical address, not a mailing address. It's kind of any residential area on the island, from what we understand, can't get mail unless it's to like a central mailbox place for an entire neighborhood. They just don't go door to door here like they do stateside.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the pros of living here. I mean, we've kind of touched on the cons, but the pros far outweigh the cons. Take two.
We're back.
And we're back.
Second part of this video, we're going to talk about the pros of living in the islands, and some things will specifically be about St. Thomas. One of the obvious things to mention, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful. We wake up to these views every day. It's been 5 weeks now. We started this video a week ago. And
we got a little bit busy.
Yeah. And just never get sick of looking at this. Up here on the north end of the island, it's amazing. We can see some of the BVIs to the east, but even just driving around the island, everywhere we go, views in every single direction are just fantastic. It's hard to not talk about that. I think that's one of the easiest, most things that people sort of associate with island living, and it's absolutely true. It's just beautiful to look at pretty much every day.
The other thing, of course, is the tropical weather. We touched on that a little bit, and we know that right now in the winter time, it's a little bit nicer than it will be in the summer, but I mean, you really can't beat it here. I'm originally from Texas, don't really like cold weather, so I love the fact that since we've been here, the coldest it's gotten is probably 75 degrees.
Yes.
Perfect for me. But at the same time, it also hasn't gotten hot. We've been here, like Peter just said, 5 weeks, and we have not run our air conditioning at all yet. I know some people on the island do run their AC. We choose not to just because we feel like we don't really need it. We've got great breeze. It's perfect weather all the time here. It's beautiful. I actually was mentioning to Peter earlier today, we had a brief little rain shower that, as far as I can remember since we've been here, there hasn't been any lightning or thunder. It does rain, but we don't have like massive thunderstorms. It's usually just a small shower that kind of passes through. Sometimes it'll only last 5 minutes, sometimes a couple hours, but it's very rare, even during the real rainy season, to have like extensive rain like we did in Texas. So
yeah, I think only one big storm so far.
Yeah.
And even then it was not a thunderstorm, just a big rainstorm.
Yeah. So beautiful temperatures, sunny all the time, great little rain showers every now and then just to cool things down a little bit. Love it here. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Next thing we want to talk about is access to other places. So normally living stateside or anywhere else that's a bit more landlocked, you get around by just basically driving everywhere. And here we have access to all the other islands that are in this area. The one that's behind my head. But this whole area is nothing but islands. There's ferries and fairly inexpensive flights. You have friends with boats can get you around. We started sailing, which we'll touch on more later. Using that, we can get to a couple places. So just pretty quick, easy access to other places, which always makes it feel a bit like an adventure. But even a little bit further out, Puerto Rico, the British Virgin Islands, once they open back up, deeper into the Caribbean, 40 miles south of here is another one of the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is St. Croix. We have not been there yet, but it's on our list. And then even further, there's, St. Kitts and Martinique and all sorts of stuff, all the way down to the Grenadines. Maybe we'll get there someday. But that's all a little bit more accessible to us with this new sort of central hub to travel from instead of always coming from the States.
Absolutely. So in the first 5 weeks that we've been here, we've been to St. John once, and we've been to Water Island once. But we have a trip, I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, but we have a trip hopefully planned in January to St. Croix. I'm sure we'll be back to St. John several more times because it's only a 15-minute ferry ride or 15-minute boat ride on a friend's boat. Same with Water Island, super close, 15 minutes or less. St. Croix, we can fly there for, I think it's a 20-minute flight. So
Yep. Very
excited about all the travel we're going to be doing in the Caribbean in the upcoming months.
Next thing, great segue, like how can you talk about the Caribbean without talking about beaches? There are beaches all over the place. I think even earlier in the video I joked about the one that's on this island. There is a beach over there. In fact, there was people there earlier today. I don't know off the top of my head how many beaches there are in St. Thomas. Do you?
I don't either, but I would venture to say 40 to 50 maybe. I don't know. We'll look that up and maybe add a little caption that says how many beaches are on St. Thomas, but it's a lot.
The big one is obviously Magens Bay Beach. There's another video we did earlier from our first guests that were here during Thanksgiving. You can click wherever you need to click and go check that out. Great, beautiful, big beach. It's the only one that you have to pay for, but it's got a lot of great amenities.
And it's not that expensive. It's $5 per person and $2 to park. So not bad, especially if you're going to be there for the whole day. And they've got lifeguards and chair rentals and umbrellas, and there's a cantina where you can get food and drinks, and there's great snorkeling there. It's also the one that's closest to our house. So Magens Bay has definitely become our favorite beach.
They do have monthly passes for $25 per person, but that means you're going more than 5 times a month to make that worth it. And we do love that beach, but we don't go that often and probably never will. So we'll just pay every time. We have made it to a couple others, which have been included some fun adventures. We went to Hull Bay Beach with some new friends and checked that out. A lot of people sort of snorkeling, and it's a little bit more of a rocky beach than a sand beach, but it's also a lot more quiet, a little more secluded, which was kind of nice. And we almost, not accidentally, but on a whim, ended up at Stumpy Bay Beach, which you can try and Google. It's a little tiny beach way on the northwest end of the island, and it's very difficult to get to. Fortunately, our Jeep has four-wheel drive, so we were actually able to get there. I'm almost certain that you cannot get down to this beach and back up without four-wheel drive. But there's a bunch more that we haven't even walked up to yet. Sapphire and
Brewers is supposed to be really good. It's near the airport, so you can see all the planes coming in and out. Koki Beach is supposed to be one of the best ones. Definitely the favorite with locals.
And then all the ones on the other islands. We have technically stepped foot on whatever the beach is that's in Cruz Bay. Might just be Cruz Bay Beach. I don't know the name of it. Over on St. John. But there's Honeymoon and what's the...
Keneal Bay.
Yeah, Keneal and...
Maho. Yeah. A bunch that we have sailed past, but haven't stepped foot on yet.
Long story short, if beaches are your thing, you've got choices. There's a one for every type of beach lover, I would imagine.
Another big reason that we wanted to move here, and a huge pro for us, is the activities. Specifically water-based activities like snorkeling, scuba diving, sailing, parasailing. We're not surfers, but you might be. There's actually some surfing here too on certain beaches. But some of the best scuba in this area and snorkeling in this area is right off of St. Thomas. Also, deep sea fishing is really big here, and you're actually going to be going on your first deep sea fishing outing this weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
So
nice and early Sunday morning. I will be going out on a boat. We're going to be doing, so the type of fishing that happens around here is either mostly kind of inland or near the reefs, where you're catching stuff like snapper and yellowtail and things like that. And you go further out and go after some pelagic fish, which are the fish that they don't live on the bottom and they don't live in the reefs. They're kind of like in the middle of the water column. So we're talking about tuna, wahoo, mahi-mahi, stuff like that. So hopefully I'll come back with some dinner. Jill was talking about the scuba diving. There's hundreds of dive sites around the Virgin Islands, both U.S. and British. Some of what we've done before on a previous trip. We went to Packet Rock ourselves the other day, a little self-guided dive. We had some friends that were really knowledgeable about the dive site, and another friend with a boat. So we actually just borrowed and rented some gear and went out there. But there's dive operators, all sorts of scuba ships and stuff like that. So no shortage of opportunities to go scuba diving, just a shortage of time.
Yep. And for sailing, we actually joined the St. Thomas Yacht Club and took sailing lessons. So they have the yacht club, but there's also a sailing center there that does lessons. And so we did the Learn to Sail, which is kind of your introductory 101 over 2 weekends. And we've already taken a boat out on our own, which was very exciting, and can't wait to do more of that. And they have racing, kind of community events, all sorts of options. So we'll definitely take more classes in the future, advanced in cruising, and plan to have sailing be a huge part of our lives moving forward.
Yeah, and even if it's not sailing, boating is obviously just a big part of island life. People commute by boats, they recreate on boats, they
live on boats.
So we live on boats. So if boating of any type is something that you're into, sailing or not, tons of that available in this part of the world.
And hopefully that'll become my new career. I'm looking for a job kind of in the yachting industry. So this is a great opportunity for us living on the island, for me to get even deeper into that world, make more connections, and meet more friends with boats.
Yeah. Speaking of friends, I think that's the last really big pro that we want to talk about is sort of the two ways that friends are involved with our lives. One, since we've moved here, we try to meet people as often as we can. We've met some people through the sailing center, and honestly, just sometimes out and about, chatting up strangers, that sort of thing. And everybody that we meet is so nice, and everyone always has something going on. They're always interested in, like, hey, let me take you fishing, or come out of my boat and we'll have a drink, or it's just part of the lifestyle here that everyone's very interested in, always sort of having a good time. So I think there's a big notion of no such thing as too many friends, and that's a really nice environment to be in.
Also, because this is a U.S. territory and the proximity to the United States proper, it's really easy for our friends and family back home to come visit us. Generally speaking, you don't need a passport unless you plan to go to the BVIs, which are currently closed, or just for ease of getting through the airport. We've heard that having a passport will make it easier or faster, but you really don't need one. And there's direct flights all the time from New York, Chicago, Miami, seasonally from Dallas. I think Charlotte, there's a direct flight, a bunch of other locations. So we've already had our first visitors over Thanksgiving, and we've got some visitors next week and some visitors for Christmas, and people already lined up all the way through April. So I know some of the other places we were looking in will hopefully live one day include Australia and New Zealand, places like that, which will be much more difficult for our friends and family to come visit. So hopefully they will all visit while we're still here.
That's right. Well, we hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about our first month or 5 weeks on the island. We will keep bringing you more information like this. If there's anything specific that you're curious about that we haven't covered, just type that in below and let us know, and we'll try and address those for you. Otherwise, until then, cheers.
Cheers.